Taste and social value aside, coffee is generally considered a health food and is linked to numerous metabolic health benefits. However, there is a lot of confusion around its impact on blood pressure. Does coffee make a difference? Caffeine is a psychoactive drug that stimulates the release of certain hormones in the brain. This is why coffee gives us an energy kick, if you will. Now, caffeine also gives a kick to our blood pressure and is actually a well-documented pressor, which is a substance that elevates blood pressure. Note that caffeine has this kick regardless of how often you drink coffee or your caffeine tolerance. Now, to be fair, blood pressure increases tend to be quite mild, in the range of 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury. So if you have a coffee, for example, you may get a systolic reading of 170 instead of 160. In looking specifically at people with existing high blood pressure, caffeine appears to have a greater pressor effect than it does on others, and that effect is not suppressed by the use of blood pressure lowering medications either. Now, coffee is sounding pretty grim right now, but caffeine only appears to elevate blood pressure for about 3 hours before the effect subsides. So what does this mean for our health in the long run? Foods that increase blood pressure and heart disease risk do so because they contribute to stiffness of the blood vessels. Although coffee spikes blood pressure short term, it was observed to have no harmful influence on blood vessels. Now, this is thought to be because its pressor effects are just too short-lived to do any lasting damage to the walls of the blood vessels. The majority of large observational studies not only support this theory, but actually find coffee consumption linked to improved heart health. In a review that included over 1.2 million subjects, 3 to 5 coffees per day was associated with significantly lower heart disease risk, while even heavier coffee consumption appeared to be neutral. Other large reviews consistently find the same trend, so if the blood pressure raising effect of coffee was harmful, we wouldn't expect to find coffee drinkers with better cardiovascular health than non-drinkers. If you're a coffee connoisseur, then this might sound like music to your ears. However, there is one big caveat here. Not all the large observational studies found that regular coffee consumption is harmless. Now, a possible reason is because people actually vary in their underlying responses to caffeine. And it turns out that how well we metabolize and tolerate caffeine is determined by our genes. And no, not the genes that we wear. Individual genetic variations can influence metabolism for loads of nutrients such as alcohol, folate and folic acid, best known as an MTHFR mutation, and caffeine too. Depending on your genes, you may be a fast caffeine metabolizer or a slow one. This greatly influences how your blood pressure responds to coffee, as well as your heart disease risk. Sadly, I'm a super slow caffeine metabolizer, which is why I drink decaf. Therefore, although caffeine only raises blood pressure short term, those who are slow caffeine metabolizers and consume large amounts of coffee, like 3 or more cups per day, are probably at greater risk of negative cardiovascular health consequences. So, in other words, if you suspect you are a slow or poor caffeine metabolizer and you have existing high blood pressure, I recommend limiting yourself to 1 coffee per day, or better yet, switch to decaf. As a guideline for the average healthy adult, 400 milligrams of caffeine, roughly 3 to 4 standard coffees per day, is considered safe. Consuming larger quantities in a day can lead to undesirable side effects such as digestive problems, anxiety, and even the shakes, especially if you have existing high blood pressure. Now, the severity of these side effects actually depends on your personal caffeine tolerance, so coffee connoisseurs tend to develop a higher threshold. Okay, so just to recap this lesson, on an individual level, your true coffee limit actually depends on your genetics, your personal caffeine tolerance, and your current blood pressure levels. So observe how your body responds to caffeine, or take a genetic test to know for sure, as well as take a blood pressure reading after you have a cup, just to see how it affects you.